We're back. All right, it is 11:05. We're starting our second session of the day, making sure we can hear everything. So our second session today is the Farm to School Garden Sustainability session, where we spoke with 3 different nonprofits about how you start and grow a school garden program or community garden program. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and start our session unless there's any other announcements I need to make beforehand. Okay, we'll have several announcements at the end. And just a reminder that we do have a special virtual taste test session happening today beginning at 12. So get prepared for that if you aren't already.
Hi, everyone. I'm Marguerite Green. I'm the Executive Director of Sprout NOLA here in New Orleans. We're a farmer and gardener technical assistance and training nonprofit, but we work with school garden teachers and school gardens all the time here in our community food system.
Hi, y'all. I'm Lauren Jones with Shreveport Green. Everybody calls me LJ. I'm the Urban Farm Director up here in North Louisiana. And our organization is an environmental nonprofit that functions mainly to beautify and plant trees within our area. But our particular part of our organization works within school gardens and tries to combat food desert neighborhoods, which we have 19 within our city limits. So we're doing a lot of work here too.
Hi, I'm Emily Harmeyer. I am the Shreveport Program Director, also at Shreveport Green. And so what my role is at the organization is to run our AmeriCorps program. And our AmeriCorps members are the ones primarily responsible for caring for those school gardens that we have throughout the city.
Hi, I'm Frances Boudreau. I'm Director of Good Food Project. It's a sustainable gardening program of the Food Bank of Central Louisiana. We cover an 11 parish service region right in the heart of our state. Our program promotes sustainable organic gardening. We're a model community garden, and we envision a healthy Central Louisiana where children grow up with an awareness of and access to nutritious food. We achieve this through partnering with people in the community and organizations to try to connect children to healthier food options.
Great, thank you. So today we are going to be talking about sustainable school gardens and what makes a school garden successful. So from what we all discussed together, we discovered that there's 4 main items that make a school garden successful, and that is the buy-in of administration and community, funding and support, having gardening know-how, and involving students in growing food. So those are the items that we're going to cover today in our presentation.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that we were talking about as a group when we were talking about all of this is that you don't have to have all of those, right? But you have to have at least some of them, and you have to have ways and places to look to get them. So hopefully that makes some connections.
So we discussed that the first thing that you really need before you can even start thinking about creating your school garden is really to generate buy-in from your community, to get people interested in the school garden, and to really build a coalition around operating that garden. And so that includes everybody who will be involved in the garden, from administrators, teachers, parents, and the community, and of course the students who will be participating as well. Your garden will only be successful if you can generate interest from most of, if not all of, these sources. And so to start off with, of course, when you're creating a school garden, you do need buy-in from the administrators. You need your principal to be interested in having a garden at the school. They don't have to, be the one to get their hands dirty, but they do need to at least know what they're getting into, be willing to give the green light, and be willing to throw their support behind the garden as needed. And so what we do with our gardens, we run about 20 gardens. Some are at schools and some of them are at community centers. And so when we start a new garden at a new school, the first thing that we do is approach the principal of the school. We make sure that they're behind the idea of the garden, and we make sure that they understand what they're getting into, because the last thing that you want is to be a few months in and the principal say, wait, this isn't what we agreed upon, or, I thought it was one thing, but it's actually another thing. You want all the expectations to be clear and laid out from jump. And so what we have created is sort of like a contract. We call it a memorandum of understanding. And it's just something that I created internally for our organization. I don't have any legal background or anything, so it's not, it's not something that a lawyer drew up, but it is just a simple one-page agreement that states, here's what Shreveport Green is going to provide, and here's what we need the school to provide for this to be a successful garden.
I agree with a lot of what Emily has said. Buy-in comes by giving community presentations, word of mouth. Oftentimes teachers contact us originally with the thought that they would like to have a school garden. So we start the process by sending them an application that's going to give our expectations and point out what we can provide for them. Our program provides the initial startup for their school garden, and we will do that installation and give them the beds, the soil, the seeds, and the transplants that they need to get started. Of course, we do also have that initial meeting with the school. We do a site visit to make sure that the site that they hope to have the garden is going to get 6 to 8 hours of sunlight, and that has a good water source. So in that agreement, we ask that they have other teachers to help them. So once we have the buy-in from that teacher, then we want to make sure that that person gets the buy-in from the administrator. So as part of our agreement, we ask that the principal or the person who will be supervising that sponsor does sign off on the document. Past history has told us that if we don't have that in place, things can occur that might not be great for us or for the teacher, for that matter. Not all teachers or sponsors stay in one place. You're going to lose folks through attrition. So from that experience, we know that, as Emily said, that agreement is very important.
Yeah, and I think the MOU is clearly something that works because every garden organization that we ever talk to that does school gardens or community gardens, that MOU comes up over and over again. And I think it really leads back to this buy-in question. In talking with everyone, one of the things that also came up is that you can't get one or the other. You have to have buy-in from teachers and the administration. You have to have the whole thing working together because it can get lopsided in either direction. And we find oftentimes there are these maybe new teachers, first-year teachers with a lot of chutzpah that are ready to start the garden. And when there's not a supportive administration or other supportive teachers, it can actually accelerate burnout in teachers. And we see that a lot in schools. And so we want community gardens to be something that makes the school environment more supportive and more holistically healthy for everyone, including teachers and administration, not just the students, instead of adding a bunch of bells and whistles that wear people out. So one of the things that we really like to talk about at Sprout with everything that we do, that can be with starting community farms and starting community gardens and school gardens, is that you can't build it right. You can't go backwards and rebuild it. You have to build it right first. And so really laying the roots and moving at the speed of trust for putting a garden together, and not blowing through it and forcing everybody's buy-in, but building it together is really important.
It is very important to have that trust. And once you build that trust and get that established, not only is that going to come across to the teacher or the sponsor or the administrator, but it'll also, most importantly, come across to the students. And also other community organizations, once they see that you have an inherent ability to uplift that program, then they're going to want to get involved as well. Oftentimes our teachers will find another organization that may want to give, for gardening implements like shovels or rakes or trowels or gloves, because they've seen the success of the program and recognize the value that it can give.
One of the ways that Shreveport Green has had a great success in getting buy-in from outside of schools is working with universities. So if you go to your local university, or even sometimes high schools offer this as well, within the university, they require volunteer hours. So you can get students involved and offer them volunteer hours and actually give them something fun and something exciting and something highly effective for them to complete their volunteer hours. So to just kind of go back over this slide and emphasize the important parts that we've just gone over, the main thing you want to do is just make sure that you build a team. That's going to be the most important platform that you're going to jump off from. Get your team together, get your MOU, and then work from there. Make sure you have agreements on all sides before you really just jump in head first.
So next we wanted to talk a little bit about funding and support. You've built your team, everybody's got buy-in, you all have clear understandings of each other from your MOUs, they're filed away, and now it comes down to the big piece of how do we get this done? How do we pay for this? And one of the things I like to encourage people to do when they're figuring out how they're going to fund their school garden is actually walk through what you're going to be doing every day and then what the repetition of it is, because things are going to cost money that you don't expect. And it's really easy to think a garden is just soil and seeds and I don't actually need that much money to make this thing work. But actually these little costs are going to pop up all over. And going back to that buy-in and support for teachers, if teachers start paying for those things out of their pocket little by little, it can lead to a really unsustainable school garden. And one of the big things that I like to encourage people to do is not to chase money that requires more labor to receive the funding than it does that requires more labor to receive the funding than it would to just maybe put on a school bake sale or something like that. So sometimes you'll see these $100, $200 grants that actually the admin of that grant is going to take a lot longer than 100 to 200 hours of your school's person power putting on a car wash. So really weigh what you can do with your own community's resources versus the time of pursuing other funding. And then we've got some really amazing resources here that people are going to talk through that might be great funding opportunities.
There are all sorts of community driven fundraising avenues. You can go with the federal grants. You could ask around. There might be a group like an insurance company that may want to take you on as their sponsor. I mean, we've got to learn better ways of promoting ourselves and look around for nonprofits that might offer, like our program does. It offers counseling on getting a garden started and technical support, plant seeds. We offer work days in the fall and in the spring. Our local community foundations have been just an excellent source for helping us. We got a beautiful pavilion here at our demonstration garden that's been just an ideal place for us to start seeds. Oftentimes your health connections are are looking for opportunities to promote better health in different areas. Master gardeners sometimes have, a little grant that might help you along the way with some of those things that Margie was talking about. Your big box stores and oftentimes your ag centers can lead the way. So there are probably all sorts of untapped resources that you could search out. It takes a little bit of time, but with that effort, it might be very, very beneficial to your program.
And to piggyback off of what Francis just said, our local Master Gardener chapter offers grants annually. So definitely check with your local Master Gardeners chapter and see what kind of funding is available. They are very interested in funding school gardens, and we've seen a lot of success when working through them. And then also with your big box stores, while you may not qualify to receive financial funding, you can sometimes get on their list for donations. So that means like soil, any type of plants, any types of seeds. Now those seeds and plants will be late season, but when you're working with nothing, that is a whole lot of something, you know? So always check in with your big box stores as well and try to get a good relationship with them, give them your phone number, and don't give up after just trying once, because sometimes they need to keep seeing you. You need to build that relationship. That's really important.
And the same can be said with your local plant nurseries. We've had a lot of great success with local plant nurseries in addition to, you know, the big ones like Lowe's and Home Depot. So check in with the local places because, you know, they like to support the community as well.
Margie, did you want to talk a little bit more about the federal fund opportunities?
Yeah, so I guess specifically there are a lot of federal grants that require some higher level reporting requirements. And there are local food promotion programs, and there are just a host of programs that come out every year through the USDA. A lot of the money set aside in the Farm Bill. And the reporting requirements for those are astronomical and require a lot of admin. Was there another federal grant that we wanted to discuss, Sydney?
We did mention when we all spoke before about NRCS and how they have offices in every parish that you might want to get in touch with.
Absolutely, and that's a really great point, especially with some of their pollinator projects that you can get funded. So NRCS, which stands for the Natural Resource Conservation Services, is an office of the USDA. It's a federal program. It has state offices, and so you can look at these easy maps that come by parish on the NRCS website, and you'll find out who your agent is, and they'll come on out and they can do an assessment of your site and talk about the sort of environmental impact of your site. And they have these really wonderful programs which are called EQIP, and they also have some just like one-off environmental grants. So we've seen lovely, actually here in my neighborhood, there's a lovely pollinator garden for children down the street that was fully funded by an NRCS grant, and those are some of the lower lists in terms of federal funding. So really what they want to see is proof that the project was executed, and they want to see some pictorial results of that. And those are really phenomenal opportunities for tying in environmentalism with your school garden, because we all know it's about the entire picture of how kids are interacting with nature and the earth instead of just the food production aspect. So those can be really wonderful offices to access.
And in particular, soil conservation. Our local in Rapides Parish, the Rapides Soil and Water Conservation District is a big champion of our program and has been since the beginning.
Great. And I just want to point out some of these funding opportunities you apply for directly just to help you, but some of them, such as a farm to school grant, like in some different areas, it's a different organization applying to get that money and then working with you through their program so that they can meet their objectives. And after discussing with all of you about your different nonprofits, you definitely have different ways of supporting gardens, either by you're going out and looking for a school to get started in, or schools are applying to you to get started and get funding. So there's so many different methods, and we have several listed here on the page. But I also want to invite everybody to check out this great list on the LSU Ag Center School Garden website that has a ton of funding sources on it. So all of this is by no means exhaustive, but we wanted to describe several different ways that you could look for funding.
Sydney, I also wanted to, this just kind of occurred to me while we were talking about funding, is that one of the things that can happen is you can get all your funding in a row for your premiere of your garden, and then the school year ends before you know it, and teachers need that recharge time in the summer, and then next thing you know it, you're back and it's the same grind of having to find that money. So thinking about the sustainability of funding is really important too, and maybe making a plan or a calendar for when all these grants come out. so that it doesn't feel like you're having to reactively fund your school garden, so that you can kind of be proactive and plan your year around.
Exactly. And I think that that's something we'll touch on a little bit more. It's just the act of planning as you get started instead of jumping right into it without a plan. That's something that makes it much more sustainable, is that if you know what you're going to do from year to year and how it's going to continue on.
So you've got your buy-in, your community and your team is ready to go. You've got your funding, and now you need to know what to do with it. So obviously, not all of us have a green thumb. Not all of us know how to garden right off the bat. I know a lot of people are probably interested in creating a school garden, but maybe don't know exactly how to do it themselves. Well, the great news is that you've got a lot of resources out there. You yourself don't need to be a master gardener, or you don't have to be the best out there, because there are a lot of resources available. So of course, first on our list are the master gardeners. So for those who aren't familiar, this is a formal community organization that has regional branches, and so there probably is a master gardener organization in your region. So reach out to them. Master gardeners are required, as part of their membership in this organization, to complete 20 hours of volunteer service in gardens throughout each year. And so a great thing to do is to reach out to your master gardener organization, find out how to connect with individual master gardeners, and you can really sort of have mutual benefit, because they can volunteer in your garden and complete their volunteer hours, and meanwhile that's benefiting you because they're sharing their knowledge and their experience. In addition to master gardeners, there are also local community groups. For us up in Northwest Louisiana, we have the Red River Coalition of Community Gardeners. So that's another great thing, another great way to get involved and to really network with other gardeners out there. Don't be afraid to reach out and see what resources are out there, to either increase your own knowledge or to bring somebody in who is knowledgeable.
I agree with Emily. There are all sorts of organizations that you can tap into. There are people here who are in the Native Plant Society or the Herb Society, and oftentimes they ask for speakers. We've partnered with the local library where we do a monthly garden meetup. And then as for volunteers, we have the benefit of being part of a food bank. And so we have very large groups that will show up. For instance, the freshmen at Louisiana College come each August and do work days with us. And then that leads to them knowing about what we do and offering to help. So getting the word out is one of the main things, and understanding that gardening is not an exact science. We learn something new every day. And so if you have the desire and a little bit of know-how, and if you start looking around at some of these organizations, you can find people who are interested in putting out a little bit of manpower or financial support, or even just sweat equity to help you with your program or your school garden.
Yeah. And just working with nonprofits like you all, getting involved with Good Food, involved with Shreveport Green and Sprout NOLA. I'm sure there's several other nonprofits across the state that have that gardening experience and expertise that want to help you do what you need, either through consulting or the actual work, but being able to help get some training from you all. University Extension also provides all kinds of opportunities to educate you on how to garden, but also to provide that that consulting, that assistance. So if you are gardening and you're having issues, being able to call your agent for your parish and get them to come see what's wrong and how you can change it. You can find your agent through LSU by going to the LSU Ag Center website and clicking on your parish to find your agent. we do have a school garden specialist for the state, and that's Dr. Kiki Fontenot. I know a lot of people involved with school gardens have worked with her or at least heard of her. She's got so much experience and so many great tips and tricks, and we have a fantastic school garden website on the LSU Ag Center full of resources for you to use. But aside from bringing in somebody who already knows what they're doing, you can also get educated yourself. Extension puts on all kinds of boot camps, conferences, and training events, but so do other areas, like local nurseries, which we'll cover in just a moment. But there's opportunities for you to get some education yourself before you get started, even through online classes. So I'll let that go to LJ. If you want to also mention the online Master Gardener opportunity that recently came up.
Yeah, absolutely. So due to COVID-19, our Master Gardener program decided to put on a free online program that is available to anybody. And I think that when they anticipated it, they anticipated a few hundred, and it has exploded. So take advantage of that while it's available. And also, just in general, despite the pandemic, take advantage of your Master Gardener program when it's not free. It's a really great program to support. I went through it, and at the time I went into it thinking, wow, there's probably not a whole lot I could learn. And I came out the other side with so much more information than I could have even anticipated. And then connections, the networking that you get through an organization like Master Gardeners, you can't hardly measure up to that in any other capacity. If you aren't able to reach a Master Gardener program in your area, I suggest going and finding a community garden in your area. Or even if you just have a neighbor that's into gardening, go try to talk to them and see what's up with that. Because I tell you, just speaking from my position, the thing I like to talk about most is gardening. So if somebody's going to come up to me and ask me anything about gardening, they're going to get an earful, and they'll have a best friend, because then we'll just be able to share so much. And typically I would say that that's how we are. We just open up and tell you more than you ever wanted to know in the first place. So take advantage of that. And then beyond that, local nurseries, they're also a great resource for learning. I teach classes at local nurseries. I've taken classes at local nurseries. Sometimes these nurseries will bring in people from outside that are in the gardening world famous. And you can go and sign up for their classes, and they'll show you something very specific and special. And it's just fun getting to know all of your gardening people in your area. So all of those resources are really valuable for you.
And with Shreveport Green, you actually teach at nurseries every now and then, right?
That is correct, yes. And I've actually uploaded a PowerPoint so that later, if you're looking for some information, I've uploaded the PowerPoint that I teach at those local nurseries. So free to all you guys out there.
I want to stress the importance of school garden maintenance. As we found with not only school gardens, but with community gardens, one of the ways that you're going to maintain your buy-in from the powers that be is to keep that garden cleaned and free of weeds and pests, because the first time you get a mice or a snake or something in the garden, then that's going to decrease your chances of being able to sustain it in the future. And also the same for the community, because that garden is going to be a reflection on not only the people who help you get it in, but on you as school or a program. And from experience, we have had that happen. Our first rule of gardening is observation. So laying eyes every day or every other day on the garden is your best bet.
So from what you all have said, it seems that getting that gardening know-how is a little bit about reading the book or watching the video or educating yourself that way, but a lot about networking and working with people and asking them what they know and learning from them.
Yeah, and I'd like to add that, it really is about getting that hands-on experience, and it doesn't take, you don't have to be an experienced gardener to do that. LJ talked about starting the Master Gardener program and being unsure if there was anything that she really had left to learn. And I sort of, I took the Master Gardener program at the same time that she did. And I started off on the opposite side of the spectrum. I was completely new to gardening. And, you know, there was nothing holding me back from benefiting from that program. So you can start at square one.
And I was going to add, I completely agree with all of this. And I also think there's this amazing opportunity in that networking to bring folks into your garden and build that community buy-in, you know, depending on your school's procedures, of course, with like having new people on campus, but for getting people from the outside invested in your school garden, and for also having the opportunity to have a more diverse experience of who's in your garden, especially for kids. It really matters for a kid to build buy-in in a garden that they see people who they identify with gardening and being positive about gardening. And so that can be another opportunity to diversify the voices in school gardens and to show kids like, oh yeah, people like me are great at gardening. Like I can see myself in food production. And a lot of the time they don't get that opportunity because either, you know, whatever the makeup of classrooms are oftentimes skewed away from what the makeup, the, you know, diversity of teachers are in a lot of our schools. So what an awesome opportunity to network and bring in people who might be community leaders for your students.
So you've got your buy-in, you've got your money, you've got a little bit of gardening know-how or somebody on your side who does. And now, of course, comes, I guess, what we've all been waiting for, involving the students and growing some food. You know, this is what it's really all about. And really, this sort of feeds into your buy-in for next year, right? You will keep getting asked back if you do a great job involving your students, growing food, engaging and teaching them. And so this is, you know, hugely important, and it's why we do what we do. Now, of course, every subject can be taught in the garden. We use our curriculum to teach math, we teach science, we teach health, of course, and nutrition. We teach art, all kinds of different things using the garden.
And that's what we have started doing here at Good Food Project. And in 2017, we did a self-evaluation, and we realized that what we do best is work with kids. One of the things that we did was to bring on board an educator from our local school district and get their input. And one of the things that they taught us, and this was from the science curriculum coordinator, was to line our lessons up with Louisiana Believe STEM curriculum. And so we have gotten about 30 lessons that we are, aligning with that STEM curriculum. We go in and do actual live lessons with the students, and that took a lot of effort to get an audience with the school board and to let them know that the food bank was indeed serious about offering this commitment to the students. Once we're able to get in and work one-on-one with the children, we help them see that growing food is something that will benefit not only themselves but their family. And that's so important for our community, from an economic standpoint, from a health standpoint. And so we've been able to pull in all those entities simply because we have made this very strong commitment to the education of the children in our community. We feel it is very important to do that to raise the health standard of Central Louisiana. And so we encourage them to take the food that they harvest and to share it with the students in the school by taste test, or to send that produce home with the kids, or to the lowest paid member of the staff. If they cannot do any of those things with the food, then we are always available to receive it here at Good Food Project, where we weigh it and then distribute it to food bank clients.
Great. And I just wanted to add in that, you talked about the curriculum that you all have, and it seems like there's several other curriculums that have been created across the state for use in school gardens, and definitely across the country. With the Farm to School program, we have put together a compendium of curriculum that is free and available for you to access that actually coincides with our Harvest of the Month items. So for example, if you're trying to feature summer squash one month in school and you wanted to teach about it, we have all kinds of different lessons that you can do in the school garden or in the classroom, as well as have a taste test with those items and put it all together. You'll learn more about the curriculum we have available and other educational opportunities in our Farm to School at Home session during the conference. And also you'll have heard in the earlier sessions about how they can use food from the school garden in the cafeteria for items like a taste test or doing like a special meal.
So here we are at the moment. Everyone's probably been wondering, there are so many wonderful smiling pictures of kids without masks on. And our reality right now is that we are running school gardens in the middle of a pandemic. And so I think all of us thought and found it to be a very special moment for school gardening, in that oftentimes there are young people who don't feel safe in garden spaces, especially if it's a new or first time going out into a garden space. And this is really the moment for school gardens to shine as a safe space for kids. It's a moment where kids can be outside and feel safe about transmission that they might be hearing all of these messages about in their world. You could even take very, very big steps back and let kids show their smiles to each other. It's an opportunity for them to really feel like free and safe with their peers, maybe for the first time in a while for a lot of them. And so there are, we're not saying that there's a silver lining to COVID-19, but a school garden can be a safe respite during it. And, if you're switched to doing your classes digitally, if you're doing online schooling, there are still so many ways for teachers to stay checked in with their students. We've heard of a lot of teachers who are actually dropping off little kits at students' houses. We're starting transplants for some of our teachers who are bringing things that kids can grow in pots at their home. So another really amazing thing to do is just kind of gather resources for your students and make sure that they're getting access to all of those online resources, any kids' classes that might be coming up, being part of school garden networks and knowing what other teachers are sharing, and being able to just kind of send them things that they might be able to do in their kitchen or their backyard or on their patio, because we know a lot of our students don't actually have backyards. So just being able to adapt whatever they're doing at home during COVID-19 to a positive outdoor experience.
Yeah, and something that we all experienced with COVID-19, but we also experience at least once every year within school gardens, is that gap of time that we're not able to reach the school garden. And that's going to be the summer, or that's going to be the pandemic. So one of the things that I think is really important that a lot of times gets left out from teaching children is the reciprocity of giving back to your garden. I think it's really important, and it makes a big impact to show children that we don't just take, and then expect to continually have abundance, but we also must give back as much as we take. So with that being said, encourage right before those predictable gap moments, the students to maybe plant a cover crop, something like a legume, like a hot weather bean, so that you can explain to them that you're adding the nitrogen back into the soil, and it's going to rebuild and replenish. And not just that, you're also, if you're going to leave it to fallow, you're also feeding birds, and you're just kind of being an active participant in the environment, rather than just letting it, become weedy or whatever. And it's really important to show children that, and they take it well. They understand that's a big part of receiving your abundance. Something else you can do just to make it pretty in case the school is concerned with it not looking good, throw some zinnia seeds in there as well. They'll pop out throughout. It'll give it a burst of color. And then at the same time, you've got those legumes feeding the nitrogen back in there. Come back in the fall when it's time and you just cut it back and your soil is replenished, add a little compost and you're ready to kick butt again.
Great. So how that plays into what Francis was talking about earlier, you know, maintaining your garden, keeping it looking good. You don't have to just take everything out and have it be bare dirt. If you're not there to take care of it, you can cover crop and plan to give back to your garden, even though you can't be actively involved in it. That's great. All right. Well, that about wraps us up. Does anybody want to add any comments before we finish?
I think COVID has put us all into the mindset that we're going to have to look for new and innovative ways to reach the people we're trying to reach. I know here we're working on live video lessons and recorded video lessons that we can offer to the people that we serve. You know, in times of adversity, I think the best in humanity comes out. That reciprocity goes not only in the garden, but, you know, reaching out to each other. And this is the time that we have to pull together.
Great. Thank you all so much. We'll see what questions are submitted and we'll have some prepared and have a little live Q&A. Okay, and we're back. That was an awesome session, and let's get our speakers here back in the room. We did have a few questions that came up during that session. The first one being, do you have any other tips for engaging students? And that's, I guess, directed at the whole panel there.
Kids like to get their hands dirty if they're able to have an opportunity to be in a garden. Things happen. I mean, it's just the perfect classroom setting. Kids feel a sense of freedom, a sense of abandon, and they're not afraid to try new things.
I think that what you just said, Francis, about abandon is so, okay, so this is like a teaching technique that I only employ when I've felt out a class and know that this is something that they'll respond well to, or that at least some students will respond well to. And it's leaning into the gross out factor and being excited yourself. So my favorite part of being a school garden teacher is, and I'm not actively a school garden teacher right now. I do technical assistance and support and all that good stuff. But when I was full-time in the classroom or in the garden classroom with students, my absolute favorite thing to do is to be excited in the way that I would love to see them be excited, and to follow those gross things or those weird things and like find a bug and really like become puckish as an adult is an awesome way to get kids involved. And to be frank, like they will make fun of you and they will think you are lame, but you're not there to be their friend. You are there to be their teacher and usher them into the like wonderful experiences of being in the outdoor world. And so for me, if a couple of students snicker when I walk by because I get really excited about cockroaches, like that's great, because I know that deep down inside, like there are a lot of kids that are excited about looking at cockroaches too.
Or poop. They love to talk about poop.
Yeah, a lot of times classroom teachers will make faces at me when I'm like, this is like, it's poop. Like, it's okay. We can say, you know, like just be, it's the natural world, like be real about it, because it will help them make connections in their everyday life and in their science classes and in their math classes and feel more clear-eyed and engaged like throughout their school day.
So right.
Really important. I've really had some success when engaging children's senses. So something more than just reading and experiencing what they're looking at in a classroom all day. Let's incorporate smell and taste and texture. They absolutely become fully focused and aware whenever I'm like, okay, this turnip green has a really peculiar smell. Let's talk about it. And get them to rub that turnip green or the onion or whatever it is. Engage their other senses and it fully like transcends anything that they're experiencing in the classroom. And they're 100% usually, I mean, they're not even really, you know, distracted in those moments. They're 100% engaged in that garden. And then let's talk about what we're smelling. Let's compare it to things that we've tasted and really try to do a cross section of what their experience is in that moment. And then they're going to be more willing to learn why they're gardening, what they're gardening, and they're going to be excited to eat it too, because it's all associated.
Sure. That's fantastic. That's a really great idea. We did have another question that came in that was about working with NRCS. We had an attendee comment and say that they've worked with NRCS and it was great, which is something that we talked about a good bit when we were putting this session together. But they had tried to work with Master Gardeners before, and they were told that they only help out with Ag Center projects. Is that true in any way?
That has not been my experience here, and we're all in different regions, right? So, or we're in different regions. I think that how a Master Gardener program operates is going to be so specific to the people who are sort of administering it wherever they are. But I know here in New Orleans, the Master Gardeners have been willing and able to jump in all sorts of programs. I mean, even so our seed and seedling starts and our seeds, they were even willing to be like individual garden coaches with adults in New Orleans through Sprout. So so I'll say that here that is not the case, but I'll throw it to LJ and Francis for maybe a different perspective.
Yeah, I've never experienced that with our Shreveport chapter. It's Northwest Louisiana. But they have been highly involved with us and have never really given us any strict boundaries.
I haven't had that experience here in Central Louisiana either. As far as I understand, they look for opportunities to get their volunteer hours. One of our longest standing volunteer is a Master Gardener, and she takes on many other native plants and Herb Society, many other projects. So I'm not sure what the problem was in the other area. I can't specifically address that.
Yeah, so from what we understand, it's really related to the county agent. You know, they kind of determine what projects are available in the area. And yeah, it's up to the Master Gardeners are looking for projects to volunteer with. But you can find your county agent if you go to lsuagcenter.com and look up your parish there. There is a Find Your Agent button that they've put in now. And that is the best way to get that direct horticulture help from the Ag Center. Let's see, do we have any other questions here? Oh, we had a question about looking for more information on a virtual Master Gardener program, and I believe we have included that info in the chat about how to find that. It's called the Home Garden Certificate course. Do we have any, Dr. Hodson, do you have a question? There we go. Hang on, I just unmuted you, sorry. Oh, Dr. Hodson, unfortunately, you're still muted here.
A little bit. Sorry about that.
There we go.
Yes, we had a conversation with a new gardening coordinator with the city of Bunkie. And Frances, she mentioned that she's already been in contact with you about establishing some school and community gardens. And she was very excited about what Central Louisiana Food Bank is offering to this group in Bunkie, and they hope to expand upon it. And I guess my question is to our other panelists, how do you get the word out regarding your programs? Evidently, this coordinator in Bunkie had heard about what Central Louisiana Food Bank was doing with school gardens, but how are the other areas of the state finding out about these great gardening programs?
I think that was directed to all of our panelists there.
Yeah, that would be, Margie, Lauren.
Yeah, well, I'll jump in. So we partner, so we have had many iterations of school garden programming. And most recently, we have partnered with Market Umbrella and which runs Crescent City Farmers Markets on a USDA Farm to School program. And so in that, we had very specific intake where we were identifying schools that had that buy-in, the type of buy-in we were looking for, and we're committed to doing the project with us in the way it was sort of architected. But I will say, you know, it's really word of mouth in New Orleans, which is strange. I understand, because we are like an urban area. And so you would think that we could do social media and we could do Facebook, you know, website and all of that stuff, but really like teachers talk, especially, I think that if there are places with school boards, you know, here in New Orleans, we don't have a consolidated public school board really anymore. We have we have lots of charter networks. And so a lot of those teachers are networked through professional development programs that they might have, like Teach for America. And so then they have these conversations among themselves. But I would think that in places with a strong school board, that those teachers are maybe able to communicate better with one another and really share the program opportunities. And I wish that I had a clear answer for this, but I'll just say every year at the beginning of the year, my cell phone starts to ring about, I heard that you do school gardening, and 5 teachers at my school want to garden, or I'll get an email that like someone passed it to another person. So maybe the idea that, and I love that no matter what, at the end of the day, it's really just still people power that gets all these programs out. And that's applicable to rural and urban communities. And so I think one of the things that might be helpful in a place like Bunkie is actually saying like, no, we want you to put the word out. Because sometimes people don't want to tax each other. There's so much politeness right now, especially with how overwhelmed all of us are adapting to COVID. And I get this all the time where people are like, well, am I allowed to pass this person your way? And I do actually appreciate that question, because right now we're kind of like, we're over capacity. But in terms of getting a program, you know, spread around, like tell the people that you're working with, we're down to help, or, you know, ask this person to tell the folks that they're already working with, like, we're down to help if you have anybody else that you think might need a hand.
Something we've done in the past. I mean, of course, we do all of our social media and different, you know, outreach like that. But one year we actually we kind of pulled it back in and did a flyer, and we made sure that we were putting flyers in coffee shops. We were putting them on campus. We were putting them anywhere that there's like high foot traffic. And that year of all year, and we made it real cute. We used Canva and had a cute gardening glove, and it looked appealing. It caught your eye. And that was the year that we had, I want to say, probably the most interest just from external entities that we've never communicated with in the past. And it was strictly from just having flyers up that looked good and that had our information on it. And just a tidbit of what we do, just enough to make somebody curious, because you don't want to give them everything. You want them to call you.
Right.
So,
Right.
And then beyond that, something else that's really worked with us, we have a great relationship with our local news stations and the paper. And they'll even come out and do some really high-end photo shoots with us. And then those photos can be used forever at that point. And that's another reason why our flyer looks so good, because we had some really high quality pictures to use. So just using the resources that you have. News stations always want to have a good story. It looks good to have it in the paper to that what we're doing is we're doing something green and we're working with the schools, and it makes your city look good. And now that's Shreveport, so we have a little bit of a advantage on the size in comparison to somewhere like Bunkie, but maybe the flyer thing would work in a smaller rural town.
Well, and Bunkie is our partner. The Move Bunkie Forward organization is a partner of Good Food Project. And the food bank covers 11 parishes. So as you do, we have social media, we have a monthly e-newsletter that goes out, we've done the flyers. But as Margie said, I think the most important thing is word of mouth. You might go through a few months and maybe not hear from anybody, and then all of a sudden, oh, I heard about you through so-and-so. And it's usually because somebody has told somebody. But I think in the years I've been doing this, I think it's that spark when that person, for some reason, they think, you know what, I want to do a school garden. And it has to come from within, I think. And then they really get excited about finding out that they have help in their area. So.
All right. Well, we are just about out of time for our session today, but I do want to go to a question that we had and a few comments real quick. We're finishing at noon, so I'm going to try and go through real fast, but we had some comments from our attendees about school-wide planting days where every student gets to participate in some way, and also from some master gardeners in Rapides Parish who are always looking for volunteer hours. So we only have about a minute left, and we have a question here from one of our agents, Dan Davenport, so I'm going to allow to talk. So Dan, if you have a question or comment, you can add quickly.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you great.
Okay. Well, listen, I'm the Master Gardener Coordinator in Lafayette, and I also have responsibilities in Vermilion and Acadia. So all A&R agents that pretty much do this are spread quite a bit. And right now, I just want to say the Master Gardeners that help with the Lafayette Parish Master Gardeners, that the ones who are interested in doing that as their service project, those numbers drive the numbers of schools that can have the school gardens with the Master Gardeners' help. So just because a school wants one, they can apply. They actually have an application process here in Lafayette. But if there's not the numbers there for us to do the job the way that Charles Hebert, who runs that, wants to be run, then they just fall off to the side. Having responsibilities in Vermilion Parish, I personally have 10 or 11 school gardens that I'm responsible for myself. And so when another school says, oh, I'd like a school garden, it's kind of like, I don't know how I can do that, especially this year with COVID. They're going to allow me to go in Vermilion Parish, but there's a lot of spending freezes right now for agents to be able to go out and do that. So this year it may be a little bit difficult till that all gets fixed. So I just want to know that for those people that want a school garden, there's nothing wrong to send something back with the student home to see if grandpa or their daddy, who might be great gardeners, would want to go ahead and possibly come in and help them get their school garden started. And Dr. Fontenot has different programs, Dr. Kiki Fontenot, where they be able to go ahead and get those gardens started. And the GNO, the Greater New Orleans area, had that class, which is good, but we're missing the opportunity to tap into the elderly, retired man or woman that loves gardening that can help the kids with that. So I just want to let you know a little bit more about how it works in my area.
Yeah, well, thank you, Dan. We really appreciate that. Thanks for all the info there. And unfortunately, that leaves us out of time for this session, and we have to wrap up and move into the next. But this is the end of our first week of the conference, our second day of the conference. As we said before, these videos are going to be recorded and available to you at a later date. And I also want to redirect you all to our conference program, where you can find more links, including the PowerPoint that Lauren mentioned, their MOU, the garden application from Good Food Project. And also, if you enjoyed it this week, please invite your friends to join in next week. We have 2 more new sessions. It is not a repeat at all. Send that registration link to them. It should be in your chat.